Hello and welcome to another important thought leadership roundtable from Global Highways. I'm Nadira Tudor, your host, and it's a pleasure to be guiding you through this discussion. In this edition, we're talking about the challenges of rehabilitating, refurbishing, and maintaining disused tunnels. Leading the discussion is Federico Foria of ETS, an engineering company in Italy. Federico is head of the departments for Geotechnics, Geology, and Hydraulics and Research and Development. He's also ambassador for innovation and sustainability for infrastructure throughout associations, professional bodies, and outreach activities. Joining us around the table, we are also pleased to have two experts from Bentley Systems, Max Campbell, Head of Accounts Infrastructure, and Dimple Patel, Industry Strategist. In this discussion, we'll be exploring new solutions for monitoring tunnel assets by unifying geotechnical, structural, and more generally civil engineering workflows through a digital-first approach. So let's begin. Welcome, Federico, Max, and Dimple.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pleased to be here.
Federico, we're going to start with you. How can the life cycle of tunnel assets be optimized through advanced maintenance and asset management?
First of all, we need to say to the people out there that maintenance and asset management in tunnels, why it's so important for the life cycle, and why it's so important for us. It's because tunnels and infrastructure and generally underground works have a really long lifespan. You can think about that for international standards, we call it at least between 100 and 300 years. But we also have underground. For instance, I come from Italy. We have a lot of underground works from the Roman period that are still operating nowadays. So we need to think about them like old people, that we need them. And this is the reason that we need technologies and strategies to help them. So in this way, they can help us in return. So this innovation, digital transformation, information modeling is really important throughout the process. And we will talk about it. Multidimensional mobile mapping system for data acquisition, because a lot of times we lack data on existing assets. So it's really important. We collect a lot of data. So AI is also really important to assist in the transition to smart data from big data. And also considering sustainability throughout the whole process, because we need to ensure that the environmental, the social impacts are balanced with the economical one, cost and time, most of all. And then we need the transition from BIM information modeling to digital twins. So this is also the reason why monitoring and IoT is so important, to have dynamic models that can integrate in the risk management framework and asset management framework of the authorities and the owners that in the end are the decision makers most of the time in the management of the infrastructures. Right? For instance, imagine a single track railway masonry tunnel built in the 19th century that require complete refurbishment for important structural reasons. And we have a construction operation window of just 10 days. And technologies and digital transformation must help us, because we need to be extremely efficient in the time and resource that we have.
Are there any other examples where this kind of optimization had a measurable impact, either in cost savings, extended asset life, or improved safety?
Rehabilitation is really important. It's really sustainable, because sometimes it's better to reuse better existing infrastructure rather than building new assets. In a lot of cases can be like this. And a lot of cases we have also disused infrastructure, like abandoned infrastructures that for a lot of reasons, sometimes political ones, economical ones, social ones, they are abandoned. And we had an example, a recent example of a disused tunnel in a harbor area, really strategic area. So harbor generally, they are really crowded zone, as we can imagine. And so there is really a big project to help the traffic the traffic and the freight in this area, reusing this infrastructure. So in this case, it was really important to acquire as much as data as possible in a short time for the benefit of the tender and project. We used Akita, a technology that we have for multidimensional mobile mapping system. So in a single passage, you can acquire multiple information. We analyze this data, so big data, because we acquired laser scanner for a lot of data. So we use the AI with my standard AI to help in pre-assessment of the information. And then we put this information inside digital workflow using Bentley products. And in this digital workflow, we had the reconstruction a really short time of the as-built condition. And this helped us in the parametric analysis of design scenario. Not only this, because we had also some serious cracks, especially at the portals of the tunnels, to be monitored. And we also integrated the possibility of IoT inside the BIM model. So for the transition that we were talking before about moving the BIM model from the static aspect also to the dynamic aspect and to the digital twin. So it was really nice opportunity to relate all the technology that we talked before on a really strategic asset that was abandoned and now will be in a couple of years will be completely refurbished and used for the people and from the freight. So I think that is really an extremely important example of sustainability applied to existing assets.
Dimple, Max, before I ask another question, is there any response that you want to give to what Federico has just explained there?
I think in terms of you looking at the challenges of these type of projects, I think it includes a lot of, avoiding a lot of safety risks due to, worsening conditions. So I think it's a huge opportunity with what, Federico has explained here on, what different, how you can work more effectively also, in terms of safety, because I think safety is one of the main reasons of it, but it can also be like subsurface uncertainties and, when you do work in these type of projects, it can be siloed inspections and, and avoid high costs quite early in these type of projects.
Thank you, Dimple. And I'm going to come back to you, Federico, and talk about adoption and how can the adoption of advanced inspection and monitoring strategies and technologies accelerate the overall project timeline and reduce costs, as Dimple just mentioned there.
Yeah, definitely the use of this technology is fundamental for monitoring and inspection strategies, which are the base for asset management, because this is the real way where we can see the defects and we can monitoring the problem inside the tunnel throughout the life cycle. We have a lot of tunnels, and it's not just Italy. Italy is really famous to have a lot of tunnels, but this is in most like European countries, China, United States, and so on and so forth. And to manage all these assets, we should require like a lot of people and a lot of processes and a lot of resources. But the other point is that we don't have these people, because people are that one, and also we are in a historic period where we are facing like a shortage of technical personnel also, using, for instance, as we were recalling before, in the inspection, like multidimensional mobile mapping system, like Akita. So using this system to perform like a complete assessment of the tunnel for the acquisition in just one single passage, and so doing like for 50 kilometers of tunnels in a couple of days, it's really important, because otherwise you will need like a team on site with at least 4 people with a lot of equipment. These people is exposed to a lot of safety risk. AI, artificial intelligence, can help us a lot. Digitalization can help us a lot, because digitalization is a parametric way to show reality. So in this way, we can relate things like really easily if we know how to use them and we know how to manage them. So we can pre-assess the data, we can put them in a digital environment, we can relate things together. So really quick, in a really automatic way. And this is like the starting point to have all these big database, big smart database. And this big smart database then can relate inside an asset management framework. That's like I would say also always the final aim that we have, because then we want things to be managed properly. So just for the final, the link of all these elements is a digital environment. So the digital environment is the ecosystem in which we put everything that we have, and we ensure like a transparent, clear, repeatable process with the data that we can use throughout the life cycle.
Max, I just want you to comment on what you think, because it's quite worrying, isn't it? The picture that Federico is painting, really, when it comes to the skills shortage and the upskilling problems, and really the lack of people that we're facing.
Yeah, it's a major challenge in the industry, and one theme that we see coming up again and again is how to do more with less. The skill shortage of new graduates coming in, it's all about making sure that they've got the right skills, and really the skills that were needed 10 years ago are quite different from the skills that are needed now. And being comfortable operating in that digital environment is absolutely key.
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing this across different industries. It's certainly not just this industry. Dimple, I'm going to come to you now. What are the key challenges faced in tunnel repair, maintenance and monitoring projects, and how can innovative solutions address these issues effectively? We're obviously touching on technology. What are your thoughts about this?
Now, as I mentioned earlier, I think the main key challenges, at least I see, is like safety risks due to worsening conditions, subsurface uncertainties. You work in a quite siloed way, and prevent. I mean, the challenge is also to prevent. There is a cost risk in this, and I think Bentley and Sequent together provide innovative solutions to address these challenges through advanced geotechnical modeling. Federico mentioned reality modeling, digital twins for better understanding of existing conditions. And I think also it's important to have integrated design workflows and risk simulations that helps to minimize risks, to improve coordinations across disciplines. So even if you work with the tunnel, you have other disciplines that you also need to consider. And then we are talking about real-time condition monitoring and predictive maintenance with digital twins to ensure that ongoing maintenance and resilience is happening.
There are barriers, obviously, aren't there? And challenges in the adoption of these technologies. Why do you think there are barriers? Are they cultural? Are they technical? Are they something else? Max, let's start with you.
It's very much a legacy issue. It's how the industry's worked for many, many years. There have been specific disciplines, and there's been interfaces between those disciplines. And actually, as we move further and further into the digitization process, we see those lines becoming much more blurred. So, to take Federico's example earlier, the lines between the geotech team and the design team are becoming much more blurred. There's much more interaction. It's no longer a one-way handoff. It's a it's a back and forward conversation. It's 360 degrees.
Yeah, I completely agree on what just Max said. So the legacy point actually really sum up everything, like culture or political, everything side. So I will put it on the next step on this is the risk and responsibility issue. I think it's like I said in the beginning. I really like think of them like old people, like that, like my grandmother. I want to take care of them. I love her, and so it is the same like for a tunnel. And I think that the problem is that sometimes we don't want to face. We don't want to know the risk. We don't want to face the responsibility of this risk. And sometimes we think that the risk can be handled by, I don't know, like maybe like the digital tool or like the AI and so on. But the risk is of the people, and the risk needs to be of the competent people in the right places. So I think that we need to start a transition towards this point. Try to shift the paradigm on this.
I don't know how your grandma's going to feel about being likened to a tunnel. Dimple, I'm going to go back to you when you talked about the key challenges. How do these challenges, I'm interested to hear how you feel about these challenges differing between urban tunnels versus those in more remote or rural areas, because there are differences.
I think if you're looking at both urban, rural, or remote areas, it can vary dependent on space constraints, or like, for example, surroundings, environmental, geological conditions, infrastructure, and stakeholder impact. So just to give you an example of it, like, for example, space constraints. If you're working on a urban tunnel, you might have limited space due to dense infrastructure. Construction must be navigated around existing buildings and utilities and transportation system, whereof in a rural tunnel, generally more space for staging and construction and fewer existing. You don't need to consider a lot of existing structures to avoid in that case, just to give you a perspective on it, So I normally say that it's easier to build in a rural or remote area than it is in an urban one.
And Max, what are the risks of not understanding subsurface conditions before and after construction, and how they can affect projects and communities? I think that's really important to point out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, put simply, if you don't understand the subsurface, you're building blindfolded. Unforeseen ground conditions can hold multiple risks for projects, and they're actually one of the top reasons for claims and overruns. There are two potential scenarios if you don't properly investigate the ground risks, and either you must over-engineer the project to try and compensate. This will inevitably lead to higher cost, more material usage, and a heavier environmental impact. Or even worse, you could end up with projects having defects or failures, leading to health and safety issues. And, to remediate those, it can be orders of magnitude higher cost to fix it. So we always find that, $1 invested in smart ground investigations at the start of the project and leading on to modelling will almost always reduce costs later on down the line. And you mentioned communities there. The stakes are human as much as they are technical. Specifically in the case of tunnels, these are vital pieces of infrastructure that are connecting communities, providing economic opportunities. And if tunnels need to be closed for investigation and remediation, there are direct impacts on people and the direct impacts on businesses as well. Really, in my mind, the antidote to this is a living view of the subsurface. So it's taking the borehole information, the geotech, and the monitoring information as well, putting it into a 3D model, quantifying that uncertainty, and using that insight to guide the design, responsive operations, and turning those surprises into managed risks.
Yeah, and that managed risks is really important. But I think it's important to share cases where it's not been so successful. So, for example, have you seen cases where a lack of subsurface knowledge led to project delays, for example, or failures? And what can we learn from those failures?
Yeah, unfortunately, those projects are all too common and not often advertised for obvious reasons. But we deal with clients all the time that are in a situation where they're trying to remediate things where they've already had issues. It's a risk that's absolutely worth avoiding. And I'm based in the UK, and we've seen several companies have significant financial impacts of projects that have gone wrong because of ground conditions and because they didn't understand the subsurface.
Dimple and Federico, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this as well. You talked about costs a lot, Dimple. What are your thoughts about how to mitigate these costs and avoid the failures?
Being an engineer myself, to begin with, I think you want to avoid all types of surprises in a project, right? So the technology actually can help you with that, and automatically also avoid you get down the cost quite early in a project. I normally say that technology will never take away the human brain into this, I mean, whatever it is, AI gets as good as we train AI, on how they want it. So I think the validation will always come from an engineer or from a human being, but I think the technology is an enabler in this case to make it easier, faster, and you will be able to get better decisions, based off that. So I think that's my intake on that, So I think if you can calculate the costs very early by knowing, getting to know a lot of information about, you have the data available, and you can avoid that cost later on.
Federico, because you need the right human, don't you, at the beginning of the chain? I think AI is being bandied around quite a lot as the savior for all of us, but actually on everything that we do. But actually, a person is there at the beginning.
Yeah. There is always a person in the beginning, and there is always a person in the end. So I would like to add another element, which is the we are moving the discussion about the subsoil in tunneling and the modeling of the subsoil. And this is something that sometimes people, also in tunneling industry, sometimes they try to forget, is that subsoil underground is a construction material in tunneling. So that's a crucial point, because sometimes we see a lot of times, even like, I don't know, like a big project or big tenders and so on, where the informative modeling is considered crucial for the structure, is considered crucial for the infrastructure, but actually there is like no requirement sometimes at all, can also happen still today for the subsoil, for the underground condition. So here, this is another step where the things that we were talking before, they need a shift of paradigm for tunneling, where really like subsoil is fundamental.
Max, it's a good time to bring you back in here, talking about the importance of understanding the underground related to new construction, or should this be considered for rehabilitation and maintenance too?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's critical across the whole life cycle of a project, and we're often in a situation where if we're refurbing a tunnel, we're inheriting it from that paradigm that Federico mentioned, which is there was no requirement for kind of subsurface modeling, no investigations, so we're often starting from scratch. But if you want to maintain or refurbish or upgrade an asset, having confidence in your ground information is absolutely key. Any change in the superstructure can have a knock-on effect that risks damaging or destabilizing the asset. Again, we've already mentioned cracks in tunnel portals, something that it can very commonly happen if there has been a change. If you've got a comprehensive subsurface model, you can investigate these changes without the need to redo the intrusive ground modeling. This can mean huge savings for the asset owner, and especially in the long term, if they're going to be maintaining the asset over multiple decades, these desk studies will save a huge amount of time and cost in the long term. A current and 3D picture of the geology and the groundwater lets you target any future investigations or future improvements. If you've got grouting, if you've got drainage, if you've got other ground improvements, you can make sure they're very precise, and ultimately that will allow you to spend less, cut the amount of carbon, and avoid over engineering. And increasingly we're seeing an emphasis on boosting resilience to extreme weather. Again, this is something that is incorporated in having a solid 3D subsurface model. And whether you're breaking new ground or you're trying to extend the life of an asset, understanding what's happening below the surface can be the difference between firefighting issues that are arising and actually being able to plan for them and having the foresight to do that preventative maintenance.
How does the industry treat rehabilitation, Max? Is it with the same level of geotechnical scrutiny as new builds or not?
Often not, which is a shame. It's often seen as the place to start is the information that we've inherited from the construction phase. And that information is not always there. It's not always as comprehensive as it could be. But we see that changing. We see the way contracts are structured, shifting much more towards the asset owner and them having as-built models, not just as-built drawings and as-built borehole logs, but as-built models of the infrastructure that's been created to make it much easier for them to maintain that asset over the decades to come.
Federico, how can these solutions be best integrated into a digital workflow?
Integration in a digital workflow requires that all the stakeholder of the process they make them part properly. So to integrate digital workflow, we need design and consultants to adapt technologies. We need design and consultants and a contractor also. We need them to adapt technologies. We need them to invest in technologies because they need to, like Max was mentioning, like climate change was mentioning. So it's not that we don't need digital tools to assess climate change. We need digital tools, like for instance, in our case, we invest in G2Risk. Is a comprehensive toolkit for the vulnerability analysis and for the design analysis and design criteria. But then this information, more from the design side, needs to be integrated in a general digital environment where the information are and that they can pick and be integrated throughout each other. Then we need clients and owners to adapt these elements to be like the owner of the infrastructure, but also the owner of the digital ecosystem. We need them to own the digital ecosystem. We need them to guide all the stakeholders throughout the process. So to guide the designer, to guide the consultant, to guide the contractor, and not to be the other way around, because we need to help them, and we are the service on this. But also for the transparency of the process, also for the sustainability of the process, we can easily understand that we need all the people on board. We need the commercial people and software house to invest in these elements. We need design and consultant to use them and to make their own investment, to integrate, to produce technologies, to produce equipment, to do these things. We need contractor to have a vision on putting these things together on the construction and the realization part, and then we need owners and clients to guide and to overall all this process around.
So collaboration is absolutely key. Yeah. And Dimple, I'm going to ask, because of your experience, how willing do you see field teams and decision makers willing to adopt unified digital platforms, and what can be done to increase buy-in?
I think you need to be open-minded, and I think I'm starting to see a lot of people who sees the value of, working on a collaborative digital platform, whatever it is, a tunnel or a bridge or a road. It's always integrated, right? It's always a multidisciplinary project. So it's never a singular kind of project. So I think I've started to see, different stakeholders dependent where you are in the ecosystem, dependent if you are a designer or if you're a contractor or if you're an operator and maintenance person, that they all need to interact quite seamless in between because that's where we have seen failure happening, you know, that it is disconnected in between. And I really think that working in a digital way, we clearly have started to see some value in that, you know, that you work on the same data, you work on the same workflow, you're part of the workflow, digital workflow in a different way. And I really think that working on a common data and a digital platform enables that.
And that is in itself a very open and a fantastic way to work, isn't it? To keep looking, to keep learning. Now, can you believe it? We've come to the end of our discussion already, but I'd really love to hear your final thoughts. Dimple, I'm going to start with you.
I think it has been fantastic to have this conversation with Federico and Max. You know, we come from different aspects, and that's really what we want to, you know, achieve in the industry. You know, work more in a collaborative way to solve issues, solve problems, solve challenges. So I've really enjoyed being part of this discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I think there's been touched on so many important points during this conversation. So, you know, risk management, skill shortage, the work towards automation and breaking down silos. I think these conversations are important, and the more we have them, the more we understand what's at the cutting edge of how the industry is working, the quicker and the more seamlessly we can push it forward.
I'm going to mention it because I now I know that you loved it, and now for sure for me, all the people will remember that now you will not look to a tunnel to an old person in the same way. Now when you look them, you will see. This will be fantastic for me. When you look at them, you will see that they are not just old, but you will see the value that is to them. You will see that the value because that old tunnel that is there is an infrastructure that makes a social impact for the person, because help you in moving around, reaching a place, buying something, going for a vacation, linking the freight of something and so on. So you will not look it in the same way. Maybe you will not look in the same way when you see a construction site for a maintenance. You will not only think about maybe that the 10 minutes more, the 30 minutes more that you have maybe of traffic, or the delay of 15 minutes when they say to you that they are doing maintenance operations. And also in the end, I think will be nice if you're looking also that if the same value is also on the people, is not just regarding the asset, is also like the people, and these things, they need each other. It's like the old ones, but also like the new ones and the new ones, because then the future is in part of us, but the future is most of the people coming next. So we need to move in the direction of, I think, of the things that we're talking today, because we need to live a more sustainable infrastructures and more sustainable world to the people that will be after us.
Well, listen, so much to think about here. Collaboration, tech, AI, lessons learned, and particularly looking after your grandmother and nurturing them. As always with underground construction, engineers can never have too much information. It's clear from our discussion that the latest techniques pulled together into a digital environment are enabling ever better management and maintenance of underground assets. So once again, many thanks to our expert panel for sharing their valuable insights with us all. We're very grateful to Federico Foria of ETS, Federico, head of the departments for Geotechnics, Geology and Hydraulics and Research and Development, Max Campbell, head of accounts infrastructure, Bentley Systems, and Dimple Patel, industry strategist, Bentley Systems. Thank you all so much, and it's been a pleasure to host today's discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nadira.